That becomes my final answer. 2.2.1, we get 81x squared minus 16. Now if you look at this by inspection, we'll see that 81 is a number that's squared, right? It's a square number. The x squared is a term that has been squared, and the 16 is a square number. So also we notice that there is a minus in between these two terms, and we know that this is called difference of two squares. So when it comes to this here, when it comes to factorizing, all we just need to do is find our binomials on both sides, and we need to find the square root of each term. So the square root of 81 is 9. The square root of x squared is x, and the square root of 16 is 4. We write the same thing on this side, right? And all we need to do is one takes a plus and one takes a minus, and that becomes my answer. 2.2.2, we have 2x cubed minus 128. So the first thing we will do when it comes to factorizing, always pull out the common factor first. Now we can see that the number 2 is common between both these numbers, so we pull out the 2, we're left with x cubed minus 64. Then secondly, we look at further inspection, we look at the x cubed minus 64. Both these are cubes. The x cubed is a term that is being cubed, and the 64 is a number that's cubed. So we can further factorize this. So we got 2. We find the cube root of the x. We find the cube root of the 64. It will be minus 4. Right? Then all we need to do now is we need to multiply the x. Square the x. So we got x squared. We multiply the first term times the second term, which is x times minus 4 is minus 4x. But when it comes to finding the cube root, when we're finding the second bracket, we need to change the sign. So it will be, instead of minus 4x, it will be plus 4x. And then we need to square the second term, which is plus 16. 2.2.3, we have to factorize. So remember, we always look for common factors. Now we can see that there are no common factors here, but by our inspection of this question, we can clearly see that there is a x minus 3 in a bracket, and there is a 3 minus x in bracket. So we need to create an x minus 3 using the second bracket. So all we need to do is, in order for us to switch these two terms, there's a rule we use, which is change the sign on the outside. So it becomes minus 3, and therefore I'm able to switch these two terms. Now we can clearly see that there is a minus 3. So we have pull out the common factor as minus 3 will be our common factor, and whatever's left will be written x minus 3. So basically I'm left with x minus 3, x minus 3. And that becomes my answer. Okay, 2.2.4 is what we call factorizing a trinomial. So in order for us to do this here, we need to look at this third term here and see there's a minus here. So we use something called a cross method. And remember, this minus here that on the third term will tell us that we need to subtract using this cross method, and we need to arrive at the center term. So the first thing we will do is write down the factors of the x squared, whatever's in front, the coefficient of the x squared, which is 1. In this case, it's 1. So it will be 1 times 1. That's the first thing we will do. Then we will take the factors of the 24. Now remember, 24 can be made up of 24 times 1, 6 times 4, or 8 times 3. So you need to take something, one of these factors, and you need to decide which of those factors will help you to get to the 5 by minusing. So we got 8 times 3 will be the best option here. So we have 1 times 8 is 8, and 1 times 3 is 3. So subtracting the 8 minus 3, I'm left with 5, which is my center term there. Right? So don't worry about the signs for now. You just have to arrive at the center term. So the next thing I need to do now is put my two brackets, and I read the answers off this way. Right? The only problem is I need to put my signs in there now. Now remember, this column here is my x column. Right? So when I'm writing down, I must take into consideration this is my x column. Right? So How do I put the signs? Now, according to this third sign here, or should I say this third arrow, we need to look at that, and that there means when we subtract, the bigger one gets the sign of the center. That means the 8 is bigger than the 3. See the 8 here is bigger than the 3. So the 8 will now get the sign of the center. So what's the sign of the center? Is a minus. And then this becomes a plus. So remember, when this is minus, this here is minus. That means one takes a minus, one takes a plus. Right? There's another rule obviously for when this is a plus. Right? So now I'm going to read my answer horizontally. So I got x minus 8 into x plus 3. And that becomes my final answer. Okay, so we have 6x squared minus 13. This is also a trinomial, right? And we need to use the cross method when we getting our answer. So the first thing, as I mentioned earlier, is that you look at the third sign here, or should I say the third term, and look at the sign of it. It's a plus, so that means we need to add, right, when we cross multiply. Right, so we have to add and we have to arrive at the center term. Okay, so I have to write down the factors of the x, right? First the x, write down the x factors of the x on this side here, and then I need to write down the factors of the 6 on the side here. Right, so now we're gonna let's do whatever we can as best we can and work out a method where we can arrive at the center term. So I can take 6 times 1, or I can take 2 times 3. It's easier if you take the smaller numbers. It works better. So I'll have 3 times 2. Right? That's for the first term. To work with the last term, I can take 6 times 1, but I might end up getting a too big number. I'd rather take 2 times 3 or 3 times 2. So mentally I estimate and I work out, if this was a 2 and this is a 3, when I cross multiply, I'll get this to be 9. I'll get this to be 4. Right, remember that. And now when I add them up, obviously I'll be getting 13, which is my center term. Now I need to put in the signs, and remember this column here is my x column. Right, so remember that those terms are for the x. So what I need to do now is I need to put in my signs. So I need to look at the third sign. Right, it's telling me it's a plus, so that means both will get the sign of the center. So that becomes a minus, that becomes a minus. So therefore my answer will be, if I had to read it out, my answer will be 3x minus 2 into 2x minus 3. And remember, it takes a little bit of practice to get this cross multiplication when working out the factors, but trial and error, and with more practice you'll eventually get it faster. Okay, 2.2.6, we use what is known as a grouping method. Okay, we know some of us would have learned grouping method using 2 terms, right? And if you use 2 terms in this case, you won't get a similar or common factor which you can further factorize it with. So sometimes you need to apply a grouping of 3 terms, which is creating a trinomial, and then you use the cross method in order for you to factorize it. So if I had to use a cross method and factorize this, I'll have 1 times 1 for my a squared. And to get the 64, remember it's addition, so I need to add to get to the center term. Will be 8 times 8 is 64. And obviously if I cross multiply, I've got 8 here and 8 there. Adding up them together, I'll get 16, which is my center term. So remember, this is the column for the a's. So I have to look at the center term. Both will get a plus because my third term is a plus, right? So that tells me that both the terms will get the sign of the center. So I read my answer across. I've got a plus 8 into a plus 8, right, minus b squared. Right, if you notice that now, that's exactly what I've done there, right? But now I can write the a plus 8 as a plus 8 squared minus b squared. What I've created now, I've created a difference of 2 squares. So I know when it comes to difference of 2 squares, I can further write this down as Find the square root of the first term. 1 becomes a plus. Find the square root of the second term, and 1 becomes a minus. And then I remove the brackets, so my final answer will be a plus 8 plus b into a plus 8 minus b.